will be the Academy Award-winning songwriter, not the Grammy Award, the Academy Award-winning, because he'll tell you why he didn't get the Grammy. Okay. But no one needs introduction for Tom. Tom, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it. Look forward to hearing.
Send you a bill.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to put this in a pocket. Well, I'm the typical Springfield musician from the late 70s, early 80s. We've all played a million gigs, fraternity, sorority parties. I have ammo on almost everyone from those days. Bob Philibert, who was the singer in the Lavender Hill Mob, started a booking agency, and I think he made 50 grand in his senior year of high school booking bands, and so that redounded to our benefit in that we all had gigs. We all had jobs every week. Is that better, Bill? And so that was my training ground, was playing in bands, playing bars, playing high school, college stuff. And so by the time I went to college, I was pretty obsessed with songs. And after my first semester at college, I had a songwriting deal with Screen Gems Columbia Publishing in Los Angeles. So I went out to zero success, but I learned a lot about the process and the legalities. And then I came back to college for a while, and then I had a record deal with a band that also failed. But all that was good. So beyond that, 1983, a friend and I went to LA to start a band with another friend from here that was living in Manhattan Beach. And when we got out there, we found it was impossible because you had to rent a place to rehearse and you had to pay to get into the clubs. And I went out there with $400 in my pocket and a 1970 Volvo without the front seat, so I could fit my drums in there. And so the first weekend, I get a call from a guy who went to school at what was then SMS, Dave Concourse, who was a tech at Westlake Audio, which was the premier set of studios in LA. And the first thing he asked me was to come over and babysit Quincy Jones and Bruce Swedien, who were doing remixes of Thriller and dance mixes. Thriller had just come out, the Michael Jackson album. And so my first day was basically going to get turkey Reuben on rye with 1,000 island dressing at Greenblatt's for Quincy Jones. And also Michael, I rode over on my bike because I was staying right nearby, so Michael Jackson was riding my bike up and down the alley behind. But anyway, it was amusing, and they didn't pay me. And but a week later, he called me and asked me to go over to North Hollywood and help him at this studio, which had been called Davlin. And Davlin was where Al Stewart Year of the Cat was done, and the early Toto record that won all the Grammys that David Leonard produced, and just tons of stuff. And the poor man that owned it had gotten into trouble with all forms of abuse and drug abuse. And so Giorgio Moroder had purchased this place, and I went over to take some speakers out that had to go to the original owner. And while we're there up on ladders, the back door slams, and this guy comes down the hall with this amazing Italian accent, dropping every curse word ever invented in multiple languages, and asked my friend Dave to go find out what was wrong. And he came back and said, well, Giorgio's Ferrari brakes were bad coming down Coldwater Canyon, which is like this. And so I said, well, now go ask him if he wants me to fix it. And I went out and bled out his brakes and put new fluid in, and I think I charged him $20, and which was a lot to a kid from Springfield. And so about a week later, they called me and asked me to come work for them. No, next was his Rolls Royce actually broke down, and so I rescued him on that one too. He had a Corniche convertible that eventually caught fire and trashed itself. But so they hired me to come answer phones, clean the studios, depending on who was working there. If Brian De Palma was there doing Scarface, I went to get bagels for Brian De Palma. If just whatever, anything, and take care of the cars. So the first movie that was completing as I started there was Flashdance, and then next came Scarface, and all these processes were unbelievable. And so I was learning the gear and stuff like that. And I think next was Beverly Hills Cop 1. So my reward for working 100 hours a week at $5 an hour was I could learn to record. So after everybody went home, Giorgio's engineer would teach me stuff. And then my next reward was I got to do demos of my own songs. And so about 3 months in, Giorgio had a publisher, an in-house music publisher, and he caught me finishing a mix, and he said, "What is that?" I said, "No, that's just something I made up last night." And he said, "I want it." And they put that on a Giorgio Moroder solo record for Germany, and the song actually went somewhere up the charts, like not far, number 30 or something. And it's not very good. But the guy that had written Flashdance with him was the drummer on all the Donna Summer records, and he had gone off to produce the Billy Idol records, and so he wasn't available. So I think it was somewhat before Top Gun. I don't remember what project came up, but I started writing some lyrics for Giorgio, and then Top Gun came in, and they had 318 songs that they were throwing up against footage, and nothing was working. So Giorgio and I went back. By then we'd built 2 more studios, which I would sleep on the floor to let the carpenters in, of course. And so the first song we wrote was Danger Zone, and it was actually pretty cool. It was a lot more kind of a rockabilly song initially, a little more swing and stuff. And then started the lottery of finding the singer. And of course, whoever's putting out the soundtrack wants their singers. So they mentioned Paul Young, the British singer, and that wasn't right. And I think I've only heard recently they offered it to Journey, and they passed, and they offered it to REO Speedwagon, which thank God they passed. And don't quote me. And but anyway, so then they came up with Kenny Loggins, and don't quote me on that either. And so I go over to Kenny's house to teach him the song, and they had an extra house in Encino for when they were in town, but really lived in Santa Barbara. And so I go over to his house, and he answers the door. He goes, "Oh, hi," kind of like, "Who are you?" And he said, "Can you come back later? My wife just had some plastic surgery today." I thought, well, that's a little extra information that I didn't need. And can you come later? And I thought, you're Kenny Loggins. Don't you have a phone? But so I went back a little later, and he taught him the song. You know, we ran down the lyrics. And then, of course, he, being Kenny Loggins, had to change some of the lyrics for the worse. So anything that makes you cringe is Kenny's fault. Like, you never say hello to you until you get it on the red line overload. Yeah, it's like, give me a break. And but he's Kenny Loggins, and I'm not. So then the next week we wrote "Take My Breath Away," and those scenes did not exist in the movie. They had been done shooting the movie for quite some time, and they were just chopping it by this time. But when Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, the producers, and the director Tony Scott heard the song, they decided to shoot scenes to Take My Breath Away. So that's why they're blue lit and gauzy curtains, because her hair had grown out and she might have gained some weight. And so they convened the weekend after we wrote the song, and it was just a demo at this point. We actually had a chick who's a pretty successful background singer sing the original demo, and so they shot those scenes to that demo. There was a guy who's gone now named Joe Farrell, who invented the method of testing movies before audiences, and they hand out questionnaires, and so they tested Top Gun prior to Take My Breath Away being in, and it was an $80 million movie. And then they tested it again when the real version of the song was in, and that scene was chopped in, and it tested at $480 million. So the addition of a love song to Top Gun changed its trajectory completely, and of course it's a $1 billion movie in reality. But so because we had 2 songs in the movie, there's an obscure Academy Award category called Song Score, and so they decided we should have 5 songs, because then if it's the same author and composer, there's a special category. So we ended up with 3 dogs. We very quickly wrote 3 not good songs, and they're in there and somewhere, but they're very short. And unfortunately, there's a time that the songs have to be time amount that the songs have to be in the film. And one song they faded just a little too quickly when they were mixing, so we didn't qualify. So the only person I know of our era that has gotten that Academy Award is Prince for Purple Rain, but no guarantee we could have gotten it. So anyway, movie comes out, blows up, we get nominated for Academy Award. I don't really even know anything about it, so I didn't really make the most of it by any means. But you know, it was it's a really long event. It's like 7 hours long, and afterwards the party was good. So the best party was at Spago, the original Spago over by where Tower Records was on Sunset, and so I sat the whole night with Dennis Hopper right here, and anytime I went to say hi to someone or relieve myself or any disappearance, he would hide the Oscar. So all night, Dennis Hopper was hiding, and David Lynch and Isabella Rossellini was next to him, and they never spoke. And Michael Douglas was over here, and we were talking about, I think that was when the Van Gogh Sunflowers painting had sold in Japan for $40 million, and it was all over the press. And we were talking about that, and then the next day was the talk of the party was the Van Gogh. You know, it's all so silly. But at any rate, it was pretty interesting. And the best part was I got home about 3 in the morning, and at 5 a.m. my brother-in-law is knocking on my door to wake me up because I had forgotten I was supposed to move the next morning because my roommate Terry Wilson from here had disappeared. He'd fallen in love and disappeared, and so I got to finally move into a decent place. But it was 2 hours sleep after an Oscar party. So so that's pretty much changed my life. He said modestly, and or not. But so that led to years of film songs, and that was that era where they overdid pop songs in movies. It was the MTV-ization of movie scores, and so we worked on Beverly Hills Cop 2, and that. There was that really bad Stallone arm wrestling movie, Over the Top, which should have been a family film, but at the end they decided to advertise it as Tough Stallone, which this doesn't really fly. But we ended up having 3 hits from that movie with no record sales because the movie failed and they pulled the records off the shelves that weekend. And so we had a #1 album rock with Sammy Hagar and a #1 with Kenny Loggins called Meet Me Halfway, which was a line I nicked from the script, don't tell him. And I can't remember what the third one was. But anyway, sometimes things line up and sometimes they don't. So years and years of that stuff went on. I can't really remember what happened to my life after that. But what would be the next good story?
Your Dylan story.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. So I think it was, I can't remember if it was Beverly Hills Cop 2 or, oh no, it was a Rambo movie. So I hope you can prompt me for the next one because I'm already running out of gas. So Rambo is trying to retire from being Rambo, but the bad guys won't let him, so they kidnap his family. I think this was Rambo 3. So we ended up, I think, doing all the songs in the score. And so out of the blue at my house one morning, the phone rings, and for some reason I answered it, which I don't normally. And this guy goes, is this Tom? And I said, yeah. Who's this? He said, Bob Dylan. And so he had gotten a track, it was kind of a Cat People-like track that we had done. And there were no words. It was just Georgia Moroder doing this kind of syllabic mama mama thing, and Bob was, I really like that mama mama stuff. And he said, why don't you come out to the house? So I go out to his house for 4 mornings at 10 a.m. I don't know why 10 a.m. because he was unbelievably grumpy at 10 a.m. And I sat, it was that house that he built with the big copper dome roof in Malibu, and there's no driveway. You go up a couple of dirt tracks worn by tires until you get to the bodyguards. And I guess every kid who ever took LSD and listened to Bob Dylan tries to get on his property, so there are guys posted. And then so we sat in this amazing room and wrote this lyric about the field of fire, about how Rambo wanted to get out of the game, but you can't escape from the field of fire. And we even talked about the footage of those cane fields that they use in advertisements where they burn and then they speed them up as the car goes by or whatever. Which, strange enough, some years later I actually had a Peugeot ad with a Ray Charles song that they use that similar footage. But anyway, so Bob and I write the song. It was 4 mornings. It was really done the first day, but anyway, it was, you know, and he's a fascinating guy. And so he goes to a meeting at Paramount, and none of us are there, none of the rest of the team. And some guy, as he's walking out, says, "Oh, that song's amazing, but I thought you were going to write something more like Knocking on Heaven's Door." And Bob got so mad he quit. So the song has never seen the light of day. But I talk to his son-in-law, Peter Himmelman, once in a while, who's a folk singer, kind of acoustic guy. And Peter will say, "Yeah, Bob played that song at Thanksgiving again this year. And I really like it. Shame it didn't get in the movie." But so that's the Rambo story. I really don't have much else. I mean, unless I just, you know, start naming songs, but I don't even remember all those songs. I mean, I wrote 100 songs a year at least for those 9 years, and now I do much less.
So Tom, what happens with a song like that Dylan owns it?
No, we own it, but
so
Giorgio did that weird track. So yeah, the three of us.
it just sits until Bob decides, or Bob.
I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to take a song like that and go, "Hey, Bob Dylan didn't want to finish this song. Would you like to record it?" So that's not going to. That's, you know. I guess if Bob passes, everybody would pass. But there are tons of those, you know. So I don't know if any of you seen my really embarrassing Fiber One commercial. Oh my God, I was really mad till I got the first check the other day. But yeah, they wrote different verses to take my breath away. It's so bad, and I guess they had to pay because it wasn't the usual $20 that I normally get. But although the record deal didn't go for. But anyway, so then I thought I was going to practice law, so I went to finish Drury. And I'd applied to law schools and been accepted to a couple. And my father had been a lawyer. And I thought I would do music law and practice with Brian in San Francisco. And I got done, I thought, with my degree. And the head of the music department said, "I'm not going to graduate you. You have 2 5-minute piano exams, and you have to come back another semester to do a 5-minute exam." And so I said, "See ya." And then I graduated, thanks to Mr. Parnell. So thank you, sir. And that's it. He's dead now. I think it would be, and it was not me. I didn't kill him.
Tom, the night of your big award, how long was your walk up there, and did you have a speech prepared?
No speech. I didn't think we were gonna. I didn't know anything about it. You know, I'm from Springfield, Mo, and so I just basically tried to remember everybody that Giorgio forgot. It was his 3rd Oscar, so he had this going pretty good. But the best part of my trip up to the stage was that David Foster tried to trip me as I went down the row. And he said, "I got to slow you down." So apparently he's a little, I'm thinking he might be a little competitive, you know. So I like people that can really, really sing. So like when we did Take My Breath Away and Terry Nunn did it, it was unbelievable. Great story. There was this girl, Amy Mann, who's married to Sean Penn's brother, Michael. They asked her, since it was on Columbia, they were trying to get all their artists, and she had Till Tuesday, which had that song Hush Hush, Voices Carry. So they asked her to call, so she called, and Georgia said, "You take the call." And she said, "I really like Take My Breath Away, but I want to rewrite the melody and change all the lyrics." I said, "Okay, I'll get back to you." And then I went and told Georgia, I said, "Don't call her back." And but that's how we ended up really with Terry Nunn, because we couldn't find anybody, because it needed that sort of torchy, brassy thing, because otherwise it's just kind of cinematic images and a weird bass line. So it worked out for the best. But yeah, it was so funny. Somebody wants to like totally rewrite your song. It's like, yeah. Okay, I'm done. Thank you, bye.